A meeting is underway at the French Foreign Legion headquarters in Africa. The French commander informs his team about crucial intelligence the enemy chief Masalan has arrived at Sector Y for a visit. This presents a prime opportunity to assassinate him tonight. For this mission, the commander has assembled 5 squadrons totaling 49 soldiers. He makes it clear they will have no air support. When a fighter asks about enemy numbers, the chief replies, between 350 and 500 men. A soldier named Daru glances at his friend, but Kang Chan silences him with a look. The soldiers understand the odds are impossible. They are vastly outnumbered. The commander clarifies their objective: assassinate Masalan, then immediately cease fire and retreat. Daru mutters something to Chan again, earning a sharp glare from the commander, which silences them both. The soldier Kang Chan, our protagonist, holds his gaze steady. On an ordinary day, this might have angered the captain, but he moves on, recognizing the gravity of the day's mission. With that, the meeting concludes. Hours later, under the cover of night, the mission begins. Kang Chan leads the way as their vehicle reaches the drop-off point. He gives his men 5 minutes to gear up and check their weapons. Meanwhile, he takes a moment to smoke a cigarette. A blonde soldier, Smithen, approaches and calls him Captain. Daru joins them, telling Smithen to cut it out. Chan also scolds the soldier for his foolish optimism, reminding him to focus on survival. Smithen calmly retorts that he has nothing to worry about since he's with the god of Blackfield himself. The protagonist gives a slight laugh and tells him not to get ahead of himself. 5 minutes later, the squad moves into the forest, advancing stealthily towards Masalan's camp. They move silently with Chan on point, scanning for hidden enemies. With about 2 kilometers left to their destination, everything seems quiet. But for some reason, Chan is overcome with a bad feeling. Smithen asks if he is all right. Chan dismisses it as just a bad feeling. Smithen mockingly asks if the god of Blackfield is getting scared, joking that it might be time for him to retire. In that instant, a single gunshot rings out. Smithen is thrown backward, a bullet having pierced his armor. Suddenly, a hail of bullets erupts, pinning down Chan's squad. The soldiers scramble for cover behind trees as grenades begin to explode around them. Chan drags the wounded Smithen to safety, realizing with alarm that the enemy is using grenade launchers. It's clear this isn't a random patrol. It's a planned ambush by professional snipers. The protagonist checks on Daru, who is thankfully unharmed. At that moment, enemy reinforcements arrive. Chan returns fire, his aim lethally, precise, taking down several enemy soldiers and causing their vehicle to erupt in flames. He then turns his attention to Smithen, asking if he needs morphine. Lying Chan tells him the wound isn't bad, but he knows Smithen's internal organs are critically damaged. Daru asks what their plan is. Chan wants to retreat to save Smithen, but Smithen insists that the captain must complete the mission and tells Chan to leave him. As he loses consciousness, Chan screams at him, asking if he knows who he is. In a faint voice, Smithen replies, "The god of Blackfield." Just then, another grenade explodes nearby. Daru confirms he's not seriously hurt. Chan promises Smithen he'll finish this and hold on. He emerges from cover to shoot at a target, but a bullet strikes him from behind. As he collapses, his vision fading to black, his last thought is of betrayal. Someone must have leaked their position. His head throbs. I should be dead, he thinks. Why can I still feel pain? He screams for water. Distant voices urge him to respond if he can hear them. His eyes flutter open. A doctor is leaning over him, asking how he feels. Getting no response, the doctor tells Nurse Kim to check his vitals. A moment later, the doctor exclaims that the patient Kang Chan has woken up. The Special Forces captain struggles to process his surroundings. He notices the doctor is Asian, a rare sight for him having served in the French Foreign Legion. He asks where he is. "You're at Seon Hospital in Gangnam," the doctor replies. Nurse Kim is told to call the patient's guardian. Chan is bewildered, trying to figure out how he got to Korea. The doctor explains he was brought in after an emergency call to 119, an emergency number Chan knows doesn't exist in Africa. The doctor concludes that the patient is confused from being unconscious for 3 days. Hearing this, Chan bolts out of bed and rushes to find a mirror, desperate to see what has happened to him. But the protagonist doesn't recognize the face staring back at him from the mirror. A few days later, a car cruises down a main road in Gangnam. Kang Chan has been discharged from the hospital and is on his way home. During his time there, he managed to piece some information together. He was once Kang Chan, a 29-year-old squad leader and captain in the French Foreign Legion. He lost consciousness after being shot during a mission in Africa, only to awaken in 2019 in South Korea. He is now inhabiting the body of a 19-year-old high school student who shares his name, Kang Chan. The body's original owner had jumped from the school roof and had been unconscious for 3 days. Everyone thinks the teenager has woken up, but it is actually the protagonist who has taken over the body, believing the boy died in the fall. The woman sitting next to Chan is Lee Hee-suk, the mother of the body's original owner. She has been told that her son has amnesia due to the accident. The boy's father, Kang Dae-sik, is driving. He tells his son that he's confident his memories will return with time. The father parks the car in front of a luxurious building. Inside, the mother gently asks if Chan remembers the place, but the father interrupts, telling his son to go get some rest. The protagonist obeys. Kang Dae-sik shows him to his room, and as Chan enters, the man tells his wife it's best not to overwhelm the boy with questions. Meanwhile, Chan is impressed with the room, noting that it's much better than his commander's personal quarters. It seems the original owner came from a wealthy family. The computer on the desk catches Chan's attention, but it's password protected. His focus shifts to the smartphone, hoping to use it to search the internet, but it also has a password. The protagonist wonders what the boy had to hide. Fortunately, the phone has a fingerprint scanner, which he uses to unlock it. Chan immediately searches for information about the 2016 battle in Africa, hoping to find clues about his murder and reincarnation, but the search yields nothing. He tries searching in French, but still finds no mention of the conflict. Just then, a text message arrives. A boy named Lee Ho-jun asks if he has been discharged. Assuming Ho-jun is a friend, Chan confirms he is home. Suddenly, Ho-jun's tone shifts, calling the protagonist crazy and asking if he really wants to die. Chan is taken aback and decides to ignore him, thinking the boy must not be a friend after all. But Ho-jun sends another message demanding to know how Chan dares to ignore him. As the messages keep coming, the protagonist simply replies that he's busy. Enraged, Ho-jun calls him. The protagonist answers, and a cold laugh is the only response. Bothered by the laughter, the bully on the other end asks if he grew a spine at the hospital before Chan hangs up, blocks the number, and resolves not to be bothered again. The scene shifts to a high school where a furious boy yells, "I'm going to kill that brat," and smashes his phone on the ground. The other bullies ask why he broke the phone he just bought 2 months ago. Ho-jun replies that Chan will buy him a new one when he gets back to school, smiling at the thought of beating the boy up later. That night, the protagonist is still at the computer. He has spent the day scouring news articles, including those specializing in military affairs, but has found no information about the conflict in Africa. He wonders if the battle was deliberately kept secret. Needing to clear his head, he decides to have a smoke but can't find any cigarettes in the room, cursing the original owner for being a damn nerd. Wow. Convinced the boy must have some hidden somewhere, he searches the room's most likely hiding spots. In the process, Chan finds a diary. Inside, the original owner detailed the relentless bullying he endured at school, explaining how he gave the bullies all his money, but it was never enough. As the protagonist reads, he learns that Ho-jun was one of the primary tormentors. The last entry expressed a desire to eliminate them all. The protagonist scoffs, noting that the boy shouldn't have confessed his criminal thoughts in a diary. Lying in bed, he complains about his day. Not only does he have no cigarettes to calm his nerves, but he now knows what kind of reception awaits him at school. The next day, Chan's father drives him to school. Kang Dae-sik asks if his son will be all right. The protagonist replies with a simple yes and tells him not to worry. His father says goodbye, and Chan gets out of the car. Dressed in his uniform, he walks through the school gates, wondering where his classroom is. He hopes someone might come to help him. Suddenly, a voice shouts his name. All the students turn to look. It's Hojun. Well, well, the bully sneers. Looks like someone grew a spine at the hospital. Feeling brave now, hero, the protagonist reads the bully's name tag on his uniform, confirming it's the same boy from the diary. Hojun is about to bring up their phone conversation when he notices Chan is laughing. "What's so funny?" he demands. The protagonist replies, "I was looking for my shuttle and it looks like I've found him." Annoyed, Hojun asks if he heard him right. The bully yells that because of Chan, he had to pay for his own lunch and cigarettes. Hearing this, the protagonist is delighted and asks to borrow a cigarette. Hojun clenches his fist, snarling that he was going to wait until after class, but Chan is asking for it. The bully then motions for the protagonist to follow him. The two enter the school's sports court. Hojun throws the first punch, but it's a foolish mistake. Chan, still remembering his mercenary training, easily dodges and lands a swift punch to the bully's face. Hojun collapses, apparently unconscious. For a moment, the protagonist considers ending the student's life, but he knows that a murder at school would have severe consequences. Instead, he settles for stealing the cigarettes Hojun mentioned. He frisks the bully's uniform but finds nothing. As Chan starts to leave, he silently hopes that the body's original owner, wherever he may be, can now rest in peace. Suddenly, the bully, who was only feigning unconsciousness, scrambles to his feet and lunges at Chan from behind. The attack isn't subtle enough. Chan dodges and lands another punch. Hojun gets up again, and the protagonist realizes that this new, untrained body lacks the power of his old one. A single punch won't be enough. Chan unleashes a barrage of punches, striking Hojun's nose and chin until the bully crumples to the ground. The protagonist continues the assault, only stopping when he remembers he still doesn't know where his classroom is. He leaves the sports court and wanders outside, lost. Suddenly, a cheerful female voice calls his name. A smiling girl says she's happy he has returned to school. The protagonist freezes, struck by her beauty, mentally comparing her to Snow White. He notices the name Kim Mi-jung on her uniform. Unsure of her relationship with the body's original owner, Chan decides it's best to say little and avoid trouble, especially in his last year of high school. He simply confirms that he was discharged a while ago. Kim Mi-jung apologizes for not visiting, explaining she was busy with cram school. The protagonist tells her it's fine. She then adds that everyone in their class was worried about him. Surprised, Chan asks, "We're in the same class." Noticing his confusion, she asks if he forgot they were desk mates. She reaches out to check if he has a fever, but Chan dodges her hand, insisting he's fine, and asks her to lead the way. A few minutes later, they arrive at the classroom. Chan settles comfortably into his seat, looking out the window. Just then, a commotion at the door draws everyone's attention. Hojun stumbles, in his face a mess of bruises and cuts, looking as if he'd been run over. The other students assume he got into a fight with another school's gang as usual. The protagonist inwardly groans at the thought of sharing a classroom with this delinquent. Hojun sits at his desk across from Chan, glaring at him, but the protagonist avoids eye contact. Hojun sends a text to his friends. "Kang Chan has lost his mind. We're getting him during first period." Later, the teacher leads the students outside for PE. Everyone changes into gym clothes except for the protagonist. The teacher calls him out on it, but Kim Mi-jung quickly defends her deskmate, explaining that he was just discharged from the hospital. The teacher apologizes and tells Chan he can choose whichever sport he wants, but warns him to be careful. Chan sits on the stairs watching the other students play, contemplating his new reality. Suddenly, someone approaches. "What do you want now?" the protagonist asks. Hojun sneers and tells Chan to follow him. As the protagonist walks behind the bully, he thinks to himself that he shouldn't have spared him earlier. Hojun leads him to his gang, 6 of them in total. The hooligans grin, ready to use the protagonist as a punching bag. They surround Chan, who sighs. "Let's get this over with. I'm too lazy for this." A brown-haired bully scoffs that he's more than enough to handle Chan and lunges forward. The protagonist simply sidesteps and slams his fist into the delinquent's nose. The boy is thrown backward, blood spraying from the wound. The other 5 are stunned. "All of you at once," the protagonist advises calmly. "Aim for the head, body, and legs to have an advantage." Underestimated and enraged, the group attacks. But even outnumbered, the protagonist dismantles them with ease. Soon the bullies are all on the ground screaming in pain. The first delinquent he hit struggles to his feet, grabs the protagonist's hair, and winds up for a punch. Chan grabs his opponent's arm, throws him over his shoulder, and slams him into the ground, frustrated that this weak body requires so much effort. At that moment, Ho-jun gets to his feet, terrified of the boy who just took down his entire crew. One of the other delinquents pulls a dagger and threatens the protagonist. Chan just stares at the coward. When the boy lunges, he is disarmed and immobilized in seconds, his arm broken. After that, Chan turns his attention to Ho-jun, who begins to panic. The protagonist picks up the fallen dagger. "This is all your fault," he says coldly. "If I had just eliminated you from the beginning, things wouldn't have gotten this far." Now the protagonist asks whether he should use the dagger or just break Ho-jun's bones with his bare hands. The bully's confidence shatters. He begs Chan not to do anything, apologizing for everything he's done. Suddenly, they hear footsteps. The teacher interrupts the confrontation. Chan is surprised. He hadn't detected the teacher's presence at all. The man simply warns the protagonist not to exceed the limits of self-defense. Chan glares furiously at him. The professor scolds him for the look and warns that he'll be expelled if he continues. "I don't care," the protagonist replies. "I don't plan on going to college anyway." The professor questions what he plans to do with his life, but before Chan can answer, the man turns his back. "I'll handle this. Go home," the teacher says, then asks him to hand over any evidence proving he was bullied. For a moment, Chan senses that this man is someone he can't handle alone, so he decides to leave. As he turns, the teacher asks, "Where did you learn to fight?" The protagonist lies, saying he watched some videos online. "I know that's a lie," the man says. "We'll talk about this later." Chan just turns and walks away. The teacher is left stunned by how much Chan has changed. Later, the protagonist leaves school and walks through the city center. He decides to change his style, stopping at a salon to get the same haircut he had in his previous life. Afterward, he decides to eat a common Korean dish and enters the first restaurant he sees, ordering tonkatsu. The meal is nostalgic. It's the exact dish he ordered before traveling to Paris for his final mission. As the waitress serves the food, he takes a bite, but finds it's not as good as he remembers. His phone rings. It's his mother, Hee-suk, worriedly asking what happened at school. Chan tries to reassure her that everything is fine, promising to explain when he gets home. Hee-suk apologizes for pestering him and offers to pick him up, but the protagonist angrily yells that he'll explain when he gets home and hangs up. He immediately apologizes to the body's original owner, knowing the boy would never have spoken to his mother that way, but rationalizes that it's still better than jumping off the school roof. Meanwhile, at home, his father, Dae-sik, is furious about how his son treated his mother. Hee-suk tries to defend Chan, suggesting he must have a reason. Dae-sik retorts that the boy has changed ever since the incident. Just then, the door opens and the protagonist walks in. He ignores his parents and heads straight to his room. Enraged, Dae-sik gets up to scold him, but Chan returns to the living room with 2 notebooks, the diary. He asks his parents to read it. Hee-suk and Dae-sik are horrified as they read about the daily torment their son endured. With tears in their eyes, they return the notebooks. His father asks if it is all true, and Chan confirms it. "Why didn't you say anything?" Dae-sik yells. The protagonist explains that he was ashamed and didn't want to worry them, adding that it was the reason he jumped. Dae-sik asks if he made this decision after confronting the delinquents, and Chan confirms he did. His mother is relieved he isn't seriously injured, though his hands are bruised. A heavy silence falls over the room. Daisik resolves to take matters into his own hands, but asks his son to talk to him if anything like this happens again. Suk agrees, apologizing for not realizing how much he was suffering. The sight of his parents crying brings back memories from his past life. His real parents were a disaster, a kind mother and a violent alcoholic father who beat him almost daily. In this life, the protagonist decides to treat his new parents differently. He agrees to tell them everything from now on. At that moment, Daisik gets a call from work. After a brief conversation, he hangs up frustrated. Suk asks what happened. Daisik explains that his French correspondent is having a problem at customs because of a missing document. The local negotiators are demanding $100,000 to resolve it. The protagonist is shocked by the amount, which is approximately 140 million won. Daisik is about to send the money to avoid further issues, but Chan asks his father to let him handle it. Daisik agrees. Chan takes the phone. On the other end, the French correspondent explains that the negotiators have given them only 30 minutes to make the deposit, or the entire shipment will be discarded. Put the manager on, Chan says calmly. The correspondent, confused, asks where Daisik is. I'm his son, the protagonist replies. Now put the manager on. His parents watch, bewildered. When the French businessman gets on the line, Chan begins speaking fluent French, stunning his family. After a brief but intense conversation, he hangs up and tells his father everything is resolved. The negotiators miraculously found the missing document, and there will be no more problems at customs. Daisik is surprised. He knew the men were corrupt, but he never thought they'd back down without payment. The protagonist explains that from now on his father will no longer be extorted. He had threatened to destroy their entire operation if it ever happened again. Seeing his father's shocked expression, Chan quickly adds that he was just joking. When his mother asks where he learned French, he lies again, saying he learned it online. Suk believes him. Back in his room, the protagonist lies in bed, realizing he'll have to postpone his trip to France. He initially planned to leave once his body was ready, but now he feels he can't abandon his new parents. The thought is unfamiliar, and he tells himself not to overthink it. He'll leave as soon as he is fully recovered. The next day at school, already tired of it all, the protagonist rests his head on his desk. Ho-jun approaches and tells him to follow him again. Don't you get tired of failing? The protagonist asks. I'll get you today, the bully promises. Chan just lowers his head again. Fine, Ho-jun says with a smirk. Stay here if you don't care what happens to Kim Mi-jung. The protagonist's head snaps up. That was a threat he could not ignore. The bully grinned, knowing he finally had him. Until Chan asks, Who is Kim Mi-jung? Ho-jun yells that the girl went to the school roof when she heard Chan would be there, and now he's acting like he doesn't know her out of fear. Upon hearing this, the protagonist remembers that Mi-jung is his deskmate. He gets up so fast that his chair clatters to the floor. Without a second thought, he sprints to the school rooftop. Some students are already there. Chan expected to see yesterday's delinquents, but he's confused by the presence of several girls. A blonde girl notices him and makes an inappropriate offer. Chan coldly warns all the girls to leave. Who do you think you are? The girl screams, enraged. The protagonist slaps her hard across the face. I said, get out of here, he repeats. The terrified girl looks toward the delinquents for help. Ho-jun tells her he'll handle it and dismisses her. As she leaves, the girl demands that they destroy Chan. Meanwhile, the protagonist scans the roof, wondering where Kim Mi-jung is. At that moment, down in the third-year classroom, Kim Mi-jung finally arrives. A friend greets her, asking where she was. Mi-jung explains she was late because she missed the bus and asks if anyone was looking for her. Her friend points toward the ceiling. As Mi-jung follows her gaze, the scene shifts back to the rooftop, where the protagonist realizes he's been deceived. Ho-jun mockingly asks, Did you really think you were some prince coming to save Snow White? She does look like Snow White. Chan agrees calmly, then turns to leave since she isn't there. As he walks toward the door, he is surrounded by 4 boys, each holding a wooden stick with nails hammered through the end. Thinking of jumping again, Hojun sneers. Those words trigger an unpleasant memory, and the protagonist realizes with dawning horror that Hojun was responsible for the original owner's fall. "Did you lose your memory?" the bully continues. "You weren't forced to jump. You made that decision on your own." Anger and hatred begin to consume the protagonist. Noticing the tension, Hojun says, "Don't think you're getting away this time." A boy in a sweatshirt is the first to step forward, grabbing Chan's hair to intimidate him. Chan simply shatters the boy's hand and drives his knee into his face. "Get him!" Hojun yells. The boys with the nail-studded sticks rush forward, but it's over quickly. Some are punched in the stomach while others take precise hits to the face. The floor is splattered with blood. One of the cowards tries to sneak up from behind with a dagger, but the protagonist notices in time, grabbing the attacker's hand and breaking his finger. The sharp crack of bone echoes across the rooftop, followed by a scream of agony. Again, only Hojun is left standing. "You didn't learn anything from our last meeting," the protagonist says, his voice low and dangerous. "This time I'll finish you." Hojun begins to tremble and screams for the teacher. Confused, Chan looks around and sees the same teacher who broke up the first fight. He doesn't understand what the man is doing here, but he senses he is no ordinary teacher. The teacher tells Hojun to get the delinquents out of there, adding that he'll deal with him later. The injured bullies stumble off the rooftop. The professor lights a cigarette. "You didn't even wait a day to do it again," he says. The protagonist asks how he knew they would be here. The answer is simple. Kim Mi-jung had gone to him for help. The professor remarks that the situation is bad, but he uses a specific turn of phrase, an expression used only by a member of the protagonist's old squad. In that instant, Chan suspects the impossible. The professor is Daru, also reincarnated. The way the man spoke was identical to the soldier from the French Foreign Legion. To prove it, the protagonist speaks a single code word in another language. The man responds in kind. The next moment, they erupt into combat. They exchange a flurry of punches and kicks, but neither can land a solid hit, their movements perfectly matched. The duel continues for a few moments, until the teacher, astonished, wonders how an ordinary high school student can fight like this. "Who are you?" he demands. Chan returns the question. "Who do you think I am?" They lock eyes, and a wave of recognition passes between them. "Who am I?" The protagonist shouts the words, bringing back a flood of memories for the teacher. In the next moment, they shout in unison, "The God of Blackfield." A few minutes later, the 2 French soldiers have calmed down. The protagonist asks Daru how his Korean is so good. The man says he has no idea. He remembers being killed right after Chan was, and the next thing he knew, he woke up in bed with a woman, and the Korean language flowed naturally from his lips as if he'd been born there. "I understand," the protagonist says. Then he asks, "Got a cigarette?" But Daru says he can't smoke at school. Chan is annoyed that the soldier is disobeying his orders. Daru, now in his role as a teacher, yells back that it doesn't make sense to give an order like that to a student. "Are you going to keep treating me this way?" the protagonist questions. "Yes," Daru replies, "because no matter how old your mind is, you're still in the body of a teenager." Chan gets angry because he can't argue with that logic. He reflects on everything that has happened. The soldier Daru took over the body of a teacher named Sa-do Kwan. It seems their reincarnations happened simultaneously. The protagonist asks if the man enjoyed waking up in the arms of a woman while he woke up in a hospital. Daru confesses that his reincarnation was indeed much better. Chan considers starting another duel, but is scolded by Daru, who reminds him that he is now a teacher, while the captain is just a student. He insists they keep their voices down so no one learns they knew each other in past lives. Daru then questions why the protagonist is causing so much trouble, arguing he should be living peacefully now. Chan replies that he is only defending himself and has no intention of staying here for long. His goal is to return to France. "What?" Daru shouts in surprise. "You're going back to that hell." "Of course," the protagonist replies. "After all, there was a traitor among them. I have to find the person responsible so our squad members can rest in peace." Daru says he wants in and suggests they go during the school holidays. The protagonist asks if he's joking, but the man is serious. Chan tells his friend to deal with the school bullies so he can have some peace. Daru says he is already finishing the preparations. He then asks if Chan noticed anything different when he fought the delinquents on the rooftop. Chan replies that the bullies didn't seem to be carrying any weapons. The teacher gets angry, asking if the captain thinks it's normal for students to carry daggers and nail-studded sticks. The protagonist hadn't even realized how illegal that was. Daru reveals that a criminal organization is backing these students. He intends to deliver all the evidence to the school administration, which should clear the way for them to travel to France during the vacation. The protagonist smiles and asks Daru to put in a good word for him at the infirmary. They agree to discuss the trip to France later, and he says goodbye to his friend. A little later, Chan is sleeping peacefully in the infirmary. Suddenly, he senses a hostile presence and bolts upright, thinking he's under attack. Ho-jun is startled by the protagonist's reaction. He apologizes for waking him and offers some food, explaining that the first and second-year students will come to greet him after class. He also declares that Chan is the new head of the school. The protagonist just tells him to leave, and Ho-jun obeys. Hours later, Chan leaves the infirmary and walks down the school hallway. The other students dodge him, their fear palpable. As he heads toward his classroom, he finds Kim Mi-jung. She smiles, saying she kept his things for him. She returns his bag and asks how he is. The protagonist thanks her, but asks her not to bother him with questions. Suddenly, someone calls out to him. They both look back and see the annoying blonde girl from the rooftop. She tells Chan that someone wants to talk to him. Sensing trouble, Chan grabs Kim Mi-jung by the hand and says, "Let's go," leaving the other girl annoyed. Outside the school, Kim Mi-jung says, "It looks like Unsol has her eye on you." "Who's Unsol?" Chan asks. "The blonde girl who just talked to you," Kim Mi-jung explains. "Be careful. She has a bad reputation for sleeping with any guy." Chan thinks to himself that Kim Mi-jung would be shocked if she ever met Western girls. Their conversation is interrupted by a group of men in black suits waiting for the protagonist outside the school. They confirm his identity using a photo on their phone. Chan realizes this must be the criminal organization Daru mentioned. Kim Mi-jung trembles and begs him not to go. "It's fine," Chan says, then approaches the men and asks what they want. "You're as cheeky as they said," one of the men sneers. The protagonist senses this will be a tough fight against 4 opponents, and his biggest concern is Kim Mi-jung's safety. The leader orders him into the car. Chan hesitates. One of the men laughs, saying he's acting tough, and places a hand on Chan's head. "Don't touch me," the protagonist warns. The man loses his patience, but in that instant, the protagonist grabs his suit, slams the man's head into his own nose, and throws him over his shoulder. The bully screams in agony, drawing the attention of students who immediately pull out their phones to record. Another delinquent smashes a student's phone, yelling at them to stop. He then pulls a dagger, but the gang leader scolds him, saying not to use a weapon in front of the school. They decide to fight unarmed. The protagonist notes their formation, happy to finally have a real fight. The first attacker advances, but is met with a flurry of punches. The second tries a sneak attack, but Chan buries his fist in his stomach. The duel continues with the protagonist fighting fiercely against 2 opponents. He realizes it will take time to take them down when the leader suddenly kicks him in the back. Chan is embarrassed for not avoiding it. He knows Daru would have laughed if he'd seen that. The leader orders him into the car again. The protagonist refuses. "Fine," the man says, "we can solve this right here." He throws a punch at Chan's face. Chan blocks with his arm but still feels the impact. He frees himself and smashes his elbow into his rival's face. The other bullies join in. Suddenly, Kim Mi-jung holds her phone to her ear and pretends to call the police, loudly reporting the assault and urging them to hurry. The criminals decide to leave. "I'll break your arms next time," the protagonist promises as they get into their car and speed away. Kim Mi-jung breathes a sigh of relief. Chan remarks that it would be troublesome if the police actually arrived. The girl then reveals she was only pretending to call, knowing he wouldn't want to deal with the cops. Chan can't decide if the girl is brilliant or just an airhead. Suddenly, something catches his attention. NL looks at him angrily. The protagonist approaches and says that if she depends on others, they will take advantage of her, and in the end, she will be discarded. Yunil starts to push him, while saying that he should think before saying things like that to her. The protagonist gets angry but gives up fighting and leaves with Kim. Yunzil screams frustrated at being left alone on the way. Chan complains of a pain in her stomach. It was probably because of the punch he took during the duel. Kim Mang is worried and thinks about calling 911, but he says it's okay, then asks her if she wants to go to a restaurant to eat. Tattoo. Kim smiles and says she likes this dish the next day. The teacher talks about a very important philosopher. The protagonist tries not to sleep. This subject is too boring for him. The boy ends up sleeping, and Kim wakes him up when class ends. The protagonist tells himself that he would rather go to the battlefield than attend classes. Suddenly, some students approach. One of them says that he is from the first year, while the others are from the second year. The boy's bow is a sign of respect, and then hand an envelope with money to the protagonist. He doesn't understand anything and asks who sent this. The men look at Juan's desk and see that the guy ran away. Chan just says he doesn't want money and tells them to leave after that. The protagonist goes back to sleep. Another student arrives to talk to him. Chan is about to explode in anger. The boy informs him that the teacher is waiting for him in the orientation room. A few minutes later, the protagonist arrives to talk to Daru. It seems that he knew about yesterday's fight, so he told the captain to stop getting into trouble because he is no longer a child. Chan says that in the past, Daru was the one who got into trouble the most. The soldier yells that this is not the battlefield. There are cameras everywhere recording every step. He believes that at this rate, the protagonist will be expelled. It seems that Chan doesn't care about this possibility. Dar takes a deep breath and asks for a favor. He asks the protagonist to take care of the 4 students who are being bullied. Chan believes that it will be worse if he interferes when he leads these students will be bullied again. Dyer says that he will be able to skip a class if he accepts his request. The protagonist gets excited immediately. The soldier says that he will register him as a special athlete. That way, he only needs to attend classes in the morning, and if he sleeps, the teachers will not bother him. In addition, it is good for the protagonist to accept being a special athlete because he needs to train unless he wants to be eliminated. In the first week, he returns to Africa. Shannon agrees to take care of the 4 students after the conversation. He walks down the school hallway. Ail waits for him at the door of the classroom and says he needs to say something. The protagonist completely ignores her and enters the room. Enil screams, asking if he didn't notice the bruises on her face. She says it's all his fault. Chance stops when he hears this and takes the girl to talk elsewhere. Kim watches the 2 of them leave together. The protagonist chose the school's terrorist to talk without anyone hearing. NL says that those guys told her to take him, otherwise Juan will run out of tongue and she will be sent to a brothel. The protagonist sends the girl to ask for help from the police or 5 minutes from the school. Yunil screams that she just needs Chan to agree to meet with them. She cries, saying that if she denounces it will be worse. Her family is at risk of her life. Unzil promises to do anything if he meets with those men. The protagonist walks up to her asking if she will really do anything. The girl replies, yes. He then tells himself that he knew she was just like them. Chan wipes the girl's tears and tells her to compose herself. He says that from today on she should no longer wear makeup and just wear the uniform properly. Insil asks if that's all he wants. The protagonist questions if she didn't say she would do anything. In fact, the girl thought she was going to have to do something inappropriate to convince him. But Shan says that's enough and orders to call the delinquents. The girl hesitates to do it and he instructs her to make the call. The leader of the gang answers and is surprised because he was not used to receiving calls from her. The protagonist introduces himself on the phone. The leader soon realizes that Yun managed to convince him, so he tells Chan to meet him. The protagonist sets the meeting for Monday because he is busy this week. The leader asks if this is a joke, or if he thinks he can make such a request. Chan says that the man can choose whether to meet him on Monday or give up seeing him forever. The leader looks at the head of the criminal organization and decides to accept this decision, but tells the protagonist not to give. Chan warns them that they should not mess with Yunil again. After that, the call ends, and he returns the phone to the girl. She thanks him with a smile on her face, then asks for his phone number, saying that she call if she needs anything. The protagonist smiles when he realizes that Enzel would be Smith N's soulmate if the soldier were alive. He says goodbye to the girl and says that he will meet her on Monday. Yil is left alone. Later that day, the class ends. The protagonist leaves the school thinking he has a lot of problems to solve. Suddenly, someone yells at him. Chan looks back and asks if it's Snow White. Kim asks if she can accompany him, and he replies, yes. The girl seems a little bothered by something. Then she asks if the protagonist likes Arnold. Chan is shocked by the question. Kim says it's because she saw that they went out together earlier. The girl also says that she can't wear makeup to look as beautiful as Yunil, so she understands that he may be interested in the girl. The protagonist soon replies that he has no interest in Onel at all. They only talked about yesterday's fight. Kim is very happy hearing this and thanks God. Chan asks why she is talking nonsense. He suddenly realizes that the girl seems to have been jealous and immediately asks if she likes him. Kim freezes in place and blushes. Then she turns to the other side, embarrassed. The protagonist is sad about that situation because he doesn't feel like he's 19 years old. He still thinks he's 29 years old anyway. The two go to a field nearby. The protagonist is confused by what happened. Suddenly, Kim asks if he wants to kiss her. The girl even tries, but Sean runs away from the kiss, saying that they are students. Kim is embarrassed and says that her classmates already kiss. Chan wonders if the young people have changed that much. He thinks about how to escape the situation, then says that he will kiss her if she comes in first place in the next school test. Kim screams with happiness, saying that it will be easy because she always comes first. This means that he will have to kiss her suddenly. Kim becomes giant. She starts repeating that he will have to kiss her. The protagonist runs to escape the girl. The chase continues. At that moment, Chan wakes up and realizes that it was all a dream. Kim Miang never declared herself to him. Chan says that the dream was very crazy. A few hours later, he puts on his school uniform and leaves the room. The protagonist's mother looks at him confused. Chan asks if something happened. Suk says that today is Saturday. There is no class. The protagonist is surprised and says that he is actually taking complementary classes because he is. In the last year, he made up some excuse and the mother believed it from the outside. The protagonist called Daru. Sometime later, the two traveled together by car. Daru mockingly asks if the god of Blackfield is taking complementary classes. The protagonist says that he has not thought of another excuse and asks where they are going. The soldier replies that they are going to a mountain to rest. The trip is peaceful. Minutes later, the two arrive at a house on the mountain. Dare prepares the food and drinks. The protagonist asks where his alcoholic drink is. The soldier says that he is a student in uniform, so there is no drink for him. Chan reminds that the driver of the car should not drink either. Dyer says that everything is fine, because there's a chauffeur service that he can call. The protagonist says that the soldier really got used to Korea. He questions if his friend is enjoying his current life. D was waiting for this question. He confesses that at first he felt he was going crazy, trying to act and living in someone else's body, but he was helping by his wife and daughter. He thought about going back to Africa, but he knows that he will not live long with this body. The protagonist is silent. Du says that he has already risked a lot in his previous life. He thought it would be good to live in peace in this new life. Chan says that this country is too calm to live in Dar. Says that he should not say that since he fought 2 days ago. The two burst into laughter together. The protagonist reveals that he will meet the group of gangsters on Monday. The soldier asks the location, and he replies that he will not tell, but hopes that will follow him. The man says that the protagonist should not fight because he does not have the same body as before. Chan asks him not to interfere in his problems after that. The two go back to eating in silence, but Daru can't keep quiet and asks how many people the captain has already eliminated. The protagonist is surprised by the question. The soldier suggests that it was hundreds of people, but Chan doesn't want to talk about it. Dyer asks him to ignore these problems and fully integrate into this peaceful world. The protagonist thanks him for the concern, but knows that Dar knows him very well. He intends to return to his old life. Night comes, and Chan returns home. He goes straight to his room. Inside, the protagonist focuses on training. He remembers the last fight he had and redoes the same movements, only more intense. Although his mind is good at creating training, his body does not follow. The protagonist falls to the ground breathless. He fears he is not ready to fight on Monday. Suddenly, Suk asks if his son is okay, because he heard some noises. Chan hurries up and puts on his clothes, then turns on the light and tells his mother to come in. The woman says she was going to sleep, but before she wanted to tell her son that tomorrow she will meet a friend. She will also take her son, so Suk invites the protagonist to accompany her. Chan didn't want to leave tomorrow. The mother says he can stay if he has another commitment, but the protagonist says he can go tomorrow. The next day arrives. The protagonist looks at a French restaurant while telling himself that he should be training at that moment. Suk says that they should go in. They both enter the high-class restaurant. The woman looks around and finds her friend Suk greets Songi. The French customers are impressed by the newcomer. The protagonist understands everything the girls are saying and brags. He turns his attention to Seon's son and greets him. The guy tries to speak in French too, but the pronunciation is very bad. The man thinks that the protagonist didn't understand and brags about being very smart. Squai suggests that Su pay a French teacher to help his son. The protagonist's mother tries to change the subject, but her friend asks if Chan is good at English. Suk replies that he is Sanui, disagrees, saying that Chan studies in a normal school. No, there is a way to evolve if it is not for a prestigious school. The woman is harsh with her words and then justifies it by saying that she is only worried. Suk is silent listening to that. S's son speaks his French again. He calls the waiter and asks for some water. Sonu continues to praise his son, saying that he is very good. Suk says that Chan also speaks French. The woman excitedly asks if he studied at a top-level school. The mother replies that he learned it on the internet, Squai, and his son started laughing. Suk feels bad about it. Suddenly, the protagonist speaks in French for them to stop. All the customers turn their attention to the table. The girls from before ask, embarrassed, if he understood what they said. Chan confirms, but says he has no interest in them. The girls blush, so the protagonist tells the girls not to worry because the guy at the table barely understands French and the two women don't speak the language. Chan was right. That guy thought he was talking nice things to the girls at the next table. Suk says that he is proud of his genius because not everyone learns French over the internet. The French woman who flirted with him previously is impressed by it. The protagonist is surprised that the woman understands Korean and says that she can join the conversation. The French woman finds the proposal interesting. The girls get up from the table and Suk asks what is going on. Chan says that these girls want to talk in Korean. The first girl is Michelle, the second, Cecil, and the last is Cindy. Suk tries to greet them. Suddenly, Shangi gets up from the table and says that he needs to go because his son Daesek has English class today. The protagonist realizes that he managed to make that dude embarrassed. He then thanks the girls for helping, but they say they won't leave. Michelle says she helped him and wants something in return. The protagonist is afraid of those words. The girl asks for his number. She is sincere and says that the girls are interested in him, and he must know when he spied on the conversation. There is nothing fairer than giving her number. The protagonist thinks it's a joke. The woman sits at the table while asking if he's the kind of man who breaks promises. Chan realizes that he won't be able to escape. The scene changes to the next day. It's Monday. The protagonist is focused on his training while still remembering Michelle's words. He laughs, remembering the girl. Suddenly, a voice asks, "What's so funny?" Chan is startled by Dar's unexpected appearance and leaves his position. He says he can't raise his arm after this warm-up. The soldier again asks him not to meet with the gang. At this rate, he will not arrive alive in Africa or France. The protagonist changes the subject and says that he will create a sports club for those who are bullied at school so he can live his life calmly without worrying. Daru says that it is a good thought and he would even be the supervisor of the club, but he doesn't like it when the captain changes the subject. He says again that that gang are not ordinary students he can deal with. Suddenly, Chan says the monter he used in the French camp called the Legion is our motherland. The soldier repeats his captain's words. The protagonist says he doesn't care about Unsil or Jin, but he promised that he would solve it. Daru says that he loves his wife and hopes that he does not go to prison because of the protagonist. Chan puts on the clothes and says that he is going. The soldier follows him, but he says that he does not need company. Then asks if Daru remembers Mangala. The does not believe that he is listening to that. The scene changes to a few hours later. The class ends and Chan walks to the gate where a car waits for him. The protagonist gets into the car and is taken to a factory called Cotton Candy. The minions show him the way Chan goes through some room and goes underground. He memorizes where he is walking. There are 6 rooms on the right and 5 on the left. The minions show the room that the superiors are in. Chan faces the head of the organization. The man says that he shouldn't look at adults like that. Chan carefully observes the 5 rivals as he sits on the couch. The boss reveals that the superiors plan to bury him in secret, but he thought that someone as brave as Chan should stay alive, so he proposes that the protagonist join them. Chan laughs at the proposal, making the boss angry. He yells that he will be direct and says that he does not want the organization to interfere with his school. The protagonist adds that he does not care about the crimes they commit, but they should not involve children in these activities. The boss is disappointed with Chan's attitude. He says that the boy is nothing but an idiot. The protagonist tells him to shut up. At that moment, a lackey tries to attack him. Chan uses the food sticks to pierce the man's hand. The guy falls to the ground screaming in pain, and the other gangsters join the fight. It's easy for the protagonist to finish them off. The bullies are on the floor defeated. The boss realizes that he will have to deal with his own hands, but he is also caught by the protagonist, who squeezes his neck so hard that it almost breaks. Suddenly, there is a noise outside the room. The protagonist takes the boss hostage to get past those armed security guards. He threatens to break the leader's neck if anyone approaches. Chan takes the guy hostage to get out of that factory, but the men do not obey the instructions and attack with an iron bar. The protagonist defends himself from the first one. Using his foot, the others get in his way, so he defends himself as he can. The boss manages to get out of the grip and gives the order to finish off this boy. Suddenly, the protagonist's foot hits his face, and he is pushed towards the minions. Suk says that today is Saturday. There is no class. The protagonist is surprised and says that he is actually taking complimentary classes because he is in. The last year he made up some excuse, and the mother believed it from the outside. The protagonist called Daru. Sometime later, the two traveled together by car. Daru mockingly asks if the god of Blackfield is taking complimentary classes. The protagonist says that he has not thought of another excuse and asks where they are going. The soldier replies that they are going to a mountain to rest. The trip is peaceful. Minutes later, the two arrive at a house on the mountain. Dare prepares the food and drinks. The protagonist asks where his alcoholic drink is. The soldier says that he is a student in uniform, so there is no drink for him. Chan reminds that the driver of the car should not drink either. Dyer says that everything is fine because there's a chauffeur service that he can call. The protagonist says that the soldier really got used. To Korea, he questions if his friend is enjoying his current life. D was waiting for this question. He confesses that at first he felt he was going crazy trying to act and living in someone else's body, but he was helping by his wife and daughter. He thought about going back to Africa, but he knows that he will not live long with this body. The protagonist is silent. Diu says that he has already risked a lot in his previous life. He thought it would be good to live in peace in this new life. Chan says that this country is too calm to live in. Dar says that he should not say that, since he fought 2 days ago. The two burst into laughter together. The protagonist reveals that he will meet the group of gangsters on Monday. The soldier asks the location and he replies that he will not tell, but hopes that will follow him. The man says that the protagonist should not fight because he does not have the same body as before. Chan asks him not to interfere in his problems after that. The two go back to eating in silence. But Daru can't keep quiet and asks how many people the captain has already eliminated. The protagonist is surprised by the question. The soldier suggests that it was hundreds of people, but Chan doesn't want to talk about it. Dyer asks him to ignore these problems and fully integrate into this peaceful world. The protagonist thanks him for the concern, but knows that Dar knows him very well. He intends to return to his old life. Night comes, and Chan returns home. He goes straight to his room. Inside, the protagonist focuses on training. He remembers the last fight he had and redoes the same movements, only more intense. Although his mind is good at creating training, his body does not follow. The protagonist falls to the ground, breathless. He fears he is not ready to fight on Monday. Suddenly, Suk asks if his son is okay because he heard some noises. Chan hurries up and puts on his clothes, then turns on the light and tells his mother to come in. The woman says she was going to sleep, but before she wanted to tell her son that tomorrow she will meet a friend. She will also take her son, so Suk invites the protagonist to accompany her. Chan didn't want to leave tomorrow. The mother says he can stay if he has another commitment, but the protagonist says he can go tomorrow, the next day. Arrives. The protagonist looks at a French restaurant while telling himself that he should be training at that moment. Suk says that they should go in. They both enter the high-class restaurant. The woman looks around and finds her friend Suk greets Songi. The French customers are impressed by the newcomer. The protagonist understands everything the girls are saying and brags. He turns his attention to Seon's son and greets him. The guy tries to speak in French too, but the pronunciation is very bad. The man thinks that the protagonist didn't understand and brags about being very smart. Squee suggests that Soup a French teacher to help his son. The protagonist's mother tries to change the subject, but her friend asks if Chan is good at English. Suk replies that he is Sanui, disagrees, saying that Chan studies in a normal school. No, there is a way to evolve if it is not for a prestigious school. The woman is harsh with her words and then justifies it by saying that she is only worried. Suk is silent, listening to that S's son speaks his French again. He calls the waiter and asks for some water. Sonu continues to praise his son, saying that he is very good. Suk says that Chan also speaks French. The woman excitedly asks if he studied at a top-level school. The mother replies that he learned it on the internet, Squee, and his son started laughing. Suk feels bad about it. Suddenly, the protagonist speaks in French for them to stop. All the customers turn their attention to the table. The girls from before ask, embarrassed, if he understood what they said. Chan confirms but says he has no interest in them. The girls blush, so the protagonist tells the girls not to worry because the guy at the table barely understands French, and the two women don't speak the language. Chan was right, that guy thought he was talking nice things to the girls at the next table. Suk says that he is proud of his genius, because not everyone learns French over the internet. The French woman who flirted with him previously is impressed by it. The protagonist is surprised that the woman understands Korean and says that she can join the conversation. The French woman finds the proposal interesting. The girls get up from the table and Suk asks what is going on. Chan says that these girls want to talk in Korean. The first girl is Michelle, the second, Cecil, and the last is Cindy. Suk tries to greet them. Suddenly, Shangi gets up from the table and says that he needs to go because his son Desek has English class today. The protagonist realizes that he managed to make that dude embarrassed. He then thanks the girls for helping, but they say they won't leave. Michelle says she helped him and wants something in return. The protagonist is afraid of those words. The girl asks for his number. She is sincere and says that the girls are interested in him, and he must know when he spied on the conversation, there is nothing fairer than giving her number. The protagonist thinks it's a joke. The woman sits at the table while asking if he's the kind of man who breaks promises. Chan realizes that he won't be able to escape. The scene changes to the next day. It's Monday. The protagonist is focused on his training while still remembering Michelle's words. He laughs. Remembering the girl, suddenly a voice asks, "What's so funny?" Chan is startled by Dar's unexpected appearance and leaves his position. He says he can't raise his arm after this warm-up. The soldier again asks him not to meet with the gang. At this rate, he will not arrive alive in Africa or France. The protagonist changes the subject and says that he will create a sports club for those who are bullied at school so he can live his life calmly without worrying. Daru says that it is a good thought and he would even be the supervisor of the club, but he doesn't like it when the captain changes the subject. He says again that that gang are not ordinary students he can deal with. Suddenly, Chan says the monter he used in the French camp called the Legion is our motherland. The soldier repeats his captain's words. The protagonist says he doesn't care about Unsil or Jin, but he promised that he would solve it. Daru says that he loves his wife and hopes that he does not go to prison because of the protagonist. Chan puts on the clothes and says that he is going. The soldier follows him, but he says that he does not need company. Then asks if Daru remembers Mangala. He does not believe that he is listening to that. The scene changes to a few hours later. The class ends and Chan walks to the gate where a car waits for him. The protagonist gets into the car and is taken to a factory called Cotton Candy. The minions show him the way. Chan goes through some room and goes underground. He memorizes where he is walking. There are 6 rooms on the right and 5 on the left. The minions show the room that the superiors are in. Chan faces the head of the organization. The man says that he shouldn't look at adults like that. Chan carefully observes the 5 rivals as he sits on the couch. The boss reveals that the superiors plan to bury him in secret, but he thought that someone as brave as Chan should stay alive. So he proposes that the protagonist join them. Chan laughs at the proposal, making the boss angry. He yells that he will be direct and says that he does not want the organization to interfere with his school. The protagonist adds that he does not care about the crimes they commit, but they should not involve children in these activities. The boss is disappointed with Chan's attitude. He says that the boy is nothing but an idiot. The protagonist tells him to shut up. At that moment, a lackey tries to attack him. Chan uses the food sticks to pierce the man's hand. The guy falls to the ground screaming in pain, and the other gangsters join the fight. It's easy for the protagonist to finish them off. The bullies are on the floor. Defeated, the boss realizes that he will have to deal with his own hands, but he is also caught by the protagonist who squeezes his neck so hard that it almost breaks. Suddenly, there is a noise outside the room. The protagonist takes the boss hostage to get past those armed security guards. He threatens to break the leader's neck if anyone approaches. Chan takes the guy hostage to get out of that factory, but the men do not obey the instructions and attack with an iron bar. The protagonist defends himself from the first one. Using his foot, the others get in his way, so he defends himself as he can. The boss manages to get out of the grip and gives the order to finish off this boy. Suddenly, the protagonist's foot hits his face and he is pushed towards the minions. After that, the man says goodbye and leaves. The protagonist is incredulous at the possibilities of losing the organs. 1 week later, the protagonist returned home and put on his uniform to go to school. His mother says that he is still not fully healed to go to school. Suddenly, the protagonist notices something in her hand and asks what it is. Shock opens the envelope and shows that someone sent him 50 million. Chan knows it was Guang and curses the man mentally. He tries to tell his mother that he will return the money and she doesn't have to worry, but the woman is already worried because it is not common for someone to send this amount of money. Changes the subject and says that he is already late for school. Kang says that he will take him. Then, the two say goodbye to Suk and go to the car on the way. The protagonist notices that his father has changed his mood. Now he looks more serious. Suddenly, Kang asks if his son doesn't want to tell anything. The man promises not to ask anymore. If he doesn't want to talk, Chan decides to be sincere and warns that he was involved in a fight. He fought with some guys from school. It turns out that they were being supported by some bandits. The protagonist reaffirms that he managed to solve the situation without anyone being fatally injured. In addition, the bandits will no longer interfere in the school. The father asks why he lied, saying that it was a traffic accident. He replies that he did not want to worry his mother. Kang asks if he knows that Sue sacrificed a lot for him. At that moment, the protagonist notices a picture with an image of when he was born. Suk seemed not to be in good health at the birth of his son. Chan does not know the details about his mother's sacrifice, but pretends to remember. He assumes that Suk had complications in the pregnancy. Kang only asks the protagonist not to hurt his mother. He agrees. The father thanks his son for being sincere. Today, a few minutes later, Chan enters the school and finds Do. The soldier yells, asking why he is walking around. The protagonist replies that he was discharged and the doctor praised his quick recovery. Deru says that his captain really is strange. Chan asks if something happened when he was away. The soldier says, "Say that some rumors have arisen. Some say he was murdered. Others say he is hospitalized with no chance of surviving. And someone said he saw him being arrested by the police." The protagonist laughs and says that this is good. He prepares to leave the sports room when he is stopped. Dar asks what he is going to do. Chan says he will do what the soldier asked. Daru is happy, and the protagonist asks for the name of the students. The scene changes to the first class. The students brought the food from the cafeteria to eat in the room. One of the students in glasses is hit with a slap on the head while eating. He looks at the bully and is silent. The guy refers to the boy in glasses as G and starts eating his food. He says he's doing it for guns. Health. After all, he doesn't need to eat that much. The poor boy agrees with those words. Suddenly, the bully asks why he's not eating, then puts a large amount of food in the boy's mouth. The students laugh at Ji Jin. Instead of helping, the bully continues to push food into the poor boy's mouth. At that moment, someone enters the room. The delinquent looks angrily at the newcomer and asks who dares to invade his room. He soon recognizes the protagonist, then bows several times to Chan. The protagonist doesn't care about that and asks if there's some G in here. The guy points to the boy with glasses. Chan approaches and notices that Jin is shaking a lot and greets him gently on the other hand. Jin wonders why the terrifying student is looking for him. Suddenly, the protagonist calls him to talk. Jin trembles even more and asks why he should accompany him. The students are incredulous, saying that Jin dared to answer Chan. The bully scolds the poor boy, asking why he is talking like that to the boss. Suddenly, the protagonist tells the bully not to interfere, then walks up to Gon and says that they need to talk. Jin is about to refuse again. So Chan grabs him by the hand and starts to pull him out of the room. The students look scared. The protagonist says that everything will be fine, while noting that everyone is afraid of him. The scene changes to a second-year room. Chan and Gon approach a girl sitting alone. The protagonist asks if her name is Soan. The girl replies, "Yes." Then Chan introduces himself and says he's in the third year. He wants to talk to her. Soan starts shaking when she hears name. The protagonist asks if she is busy, but the girl gets up and says she can accompany him. The three leave the room, and the captain tries to remember who the third student is. Suddenly, the bully of Soan's room comes across the protagonist and calls him boss. Soan is startled by the man's appearance and trembles. Chan realizes suddenly the bully bows and introduces himself as Seiho from the... Second year, he was the one who went to deliver the money to the protagonist. The last time, Chongus makes a movement with his hand, telling the man to get out of the way. C obeys and apologizes for getting in the way. A few hours later, the protagonist manages to recruit all the students who are being bullied and takes them to the sports room. He thanks the students for their presence and says that the reason for bringing them here is because he intends to create a sports club. He adds that Professor Kono will be the supervisor, then asks if the students have any questions. Gan raises his hand and asks what sports they will do. Chan replies that he will teach physical training and the basics of self-defense. They can also choose another sport to pass the time. One of the girls asks why they were chosen. The protagonist thinks for a moment and says he wants to become friends with them. An awkward silence hangs in the room. Diru joins the conversation and says that the students can refuse to participate in the club if they don't want to, but he is sure it will be beneficial for everyone. He points to a document on the table and tells the students who want to participate. To sign, the protagonist shouts that it will be a lot of fun. The students are still afraid of him. Daru asks the captain to hold back his emotion because he will end up scaring the students. In addition, he questions why Sean brought that girl Kim Young, introduces himself kindly to the students, saying that she will be the manager of the club. Dyer asks why he brought a girl, that the whole school expects to get into a prestigious college. Kim Mayang shares the documents with the students who apparently like her and feel safe with her. The protagonist reveals that he didn't bring Kim. He found her in the hallway and she was crying because she wanted to follow him so he couldn't refuse her help. At that moment, a delivery man appears and says he brought the Tonu Dar, says that she can serve the students everyone, starts to eat the dish. Unzel observes the me getting hidden and then runs. Chan follows the girl and asks why she is wandering around, and so replies that she is not wandering around. The protagonist decides not to waste time with her and tells the girl to leave. He walks back to the sports room when she suddenly screams. Unzel asks if she can really leave and Chan says yes. She questions if she is not being suspicious. The protagonist just replies that he doesn't care. After that, he enters the room. Unil is frustrated for not being able to get his attention later that day. The 4 students signed the document to be part of the club, so the protagonist commanded the training. Unil watched the scene from afar. The students fall to the ground after so much physical effort. Kim Yong pours some drinks to help with the headquarters. Ji Jin is relieved thinking that it's over, but the protagonist says that he will start the official training. The students look shocked. Chan asks why they look. So surprised, Gijin asks if they didn't finish training just now. The protagonist replies that this was just the warm-up. The student souls almost flee their bodies after this news. A few minutes later, the real training begins. The ball catches Gion by surprise, and he falls to the ground when hit in the face. The protagonist says that the boy should not try to stop the ball with his face. He asks if everything is okay, and the student says yes. Darius scolds Chance, saying that it was his fault for aiming directly at the student face. He says again that they are at school. The protagonist holds himself back so as not to insult the soldier and says that he understands. Dare turns the ball. Then Chan says that he will show what happens when you purposely aim the ball at someone's face. He sends the ball flying with such force that it F the spark. D uses his foot to block and return the ball. The two are in this confrontation. The ball flies from one side to the other at a lot of speed. The students feel that there cannot be a more terrifying club than this. Sometime later, the training ends, and the students go to wash. Chan talks to the soldier and says that his body is improving every day. Dara says that the captain is recovering anyway. He thinks it's better not to keep this intense workout every day, so he suggests doing it twice a week. The protagonist immediately agrees at that moment. Yil approaches and calls for the main character. He angrily asks what she wants. The girl replies that she wants to participate too. Her answer catches everyone's attention. The students stop washing to look at her. The protagonist replies no. Enel thinks it's unfair and asks why Chan says that she is in the 3rd year she should worry about studying and moving on to a university. Yunil gets angry and yells that it doesn't matter because she doesn't go to any university. Besides that, she doesn't understand why she can't participate if Kim Mion participates. And is also in the third year. D defends Kim, saying that she can participate because she has good grades. Unlike Unzel. The girl looks down frustrated and then looks at Kim angrily. Mayong notices and feels bad. NL turns her back and leaves. Later classes end. The protagonist waits for the light to open to cross the street with Kim. Mayon. She asks if he doesn't think about reconsidering Yuno's request. She seemed to be sincere when she asked to join the club. The protagonist replies that the girl doesn't fit in and can scare others. The light turns green and he says goodbye to Kim. The girl tries to tell him that Unseal can make friends with the students if they spend some time together, but the protagonist doesn't listen because he is already far away. He walks alone through the streets, reflecting on today. Suddenly, an unknown number calls his phone on the other end of the line. Someone asks in French how he is. Chan doesn't recognize the voice, and the girl introduces herself as Michelle, that girl who met him at the restaurant. The protagonist asks why she's calling. Michelle says that he keeps making a fool of himself even after getting the attention of 3 girls. Chan says again that he's not interested, and asks if she REM remembers that he's still a student. Michelle asks if he is not interested in French. The girl tries to arrange a date that day, but he says that he is still recovering from his injuries. The girl starts to say obscene things. The protagonist says that he can see her on Saturday, so the two arrange the meeting even though he does not seem interested. The protagonist says to himself that he only did it because he promised that he would do it if he received help. He walks home angrily. The scene changes for the moment. Chan enters the house, his father is on the phone, and decides to hang up the call when his son arrives. He says that the protagonist arrived early. Chan soon questions who it was on the phone. Kang replies that it was a customer, and tells his son to go rest. Chan obeys, but has the feeling that his father is hiding something. A few hours pass, and Kang remains thoughtful. The protagonist changes clothes and tells his father that he is going for a walk, then invites him to come along. At first, the man refuses, saying that everything is fine, but changes his mind and says that he will accompany his son. It's late at night when the two walk outside the building. Chan finally asks if there's something wrong, and plays dumb, so the protagonist gives the same answer as his father, saying that if the man doesn't want to answer, it's okay, and he won't ask again. Kang is happy realizing that he copied her attitudes. The man reveals that he really has a problem. The two sit on the bench. Kang says that he intended to import French cars and sell them here in South Korea. It would be approximately 50 cars. He would request more from the French company after they sold them all. At first, the plan seemed to be perfect, but an external factor intervened. The SEO Jiang Group established a subsidiary called Sejong Motors, and now they offer to make parallel imports of the same cars that Kang intended to sell. The protagonist assured that those scammers were jealous of his father and stole his idea. Suddenly, he is surprised by himself for referring to Kong as his father. In his own thoughts, the man continues to explain the situation and says that that call he received was from France. The company guaranteed the monopoly, but only if Kang buys 500 cars with each purchase. They are acting as if Kang was the priority. But they made that offer knowing perfectly well that he would not be able to match their demands. Kang is sure that if he refuses the offer, the French company will close a contract with a much greater cooperation. The protagonist asks which car model he intends to import. The father replies that it is the Shift. It is an extremely luxurious car. Chan knows that it will be absurd the amount of money to pay for 500 cars like this. King says that it can get worse. He gives up the money he spent on the contract of 50 cars, or he will have to do his best to sell them here. In any choice, the losses will be approximately equal. At that moment, he starts crying, confessing that he used the house as collateral. In this contract, things can get difficult for them. If the situation cannot be contained, the man also apologizes to his son for showing such a pathetic side of himself. The protagonist says that everything is fine and adds that he just doesn't want it to affect his mother. Kang says that's what really worries him. He's doing his best so that Suk doesn't find out. The protagonist says that the man's expressions aren't helping much. In fact, his concern is very obvious. Kang apologizes for that. So Chan questions how things are currently. Kang says that the executives from France will arrive this week. The protagonist realizes that the French company is in a hurry. The father reveals that they decided to rest tomorrow and meet on Sunday. At noon, the protagonist has an idea and asks permission to accompany him to the meeting. Kang says that he doesn't have to worry because he will solve it himself, but Chan insists on going with him and even says that he can translate what the French want to say. Kang is totally dejected and sad. He believes that he will have no way out. Suddenly, the protagonist gets up and starts yelling at his father, saying that they should try. If nothing works out, at least they did their best to recover the situation. Kang is surprised by his son's determination and agrees that they should try. The man says that he will need the protagonist's help, even if the results are not good. He also asks that nothing that was discussed there reach his mother's ears later. The protagonist returns home. Sukun asks about Kay, and he says that his father decided to stay away a little longer. The woman finds it strange. Chan says goodbye and goes back to the room. At that moment, his phone rings. He answers and regrets to know that the call from Michelle, but soon after changes his mind and says that she called it a great time. The girl thought he missed her, but that wasn't it. In fact, he wanted to postpone the date for another week. The girl gets angry, and the protagonist says it's because of some personal problem. She agrees to postpone it for another week and says that after that she won't give it again. The protagonist ends the call and turns his attention to what is most important at the moment. He remembers that he had an account with money when he worked in France. It would be nice if he could access it, but he forgot all the data he had. To make matters worse, he couldn't just call the bank and say that he was the legendary god of Blackfield. The protagonist calls Deo and tells him about the problems his family is going through. He intends to call the nearest agency, which is in Hong Kong, on Monday. Daru says that this is great, but he is worried about Suk. The protagonist says that he is too, and that is why he will deal with the situation as soon as possible. The scene changes to Sunday at the Namsan Hotel. Kang explains to his son that there will be 2 executives and a translator from their company. They know that Chan is his son, but he will tell the executives that Chan is an assistant translator. The protagonist agrees and the father thanks them for their help. The 2 walk to the hotel. Chan is ready to help in the negotiations. As soon as he enters the hotel, Kang introduces the executives of the French company. At that moment, the protagonist is frozen in place. A man walks towards him with heavy steps. Chan recognizes that face immediately. It was the captain of the French mercenary squadron. His name was Charlon. The protagonist wonders how the captain is still alive. Charlon raises his hand to greet Chan, who was paralyzed. The protagonist's father immediately greeted the man. Charlon speaks only in French. He scolds another executive who is flirting with one of the girls in the hotel, the man named Smith, and obeys the vice president. The protagonist is shocked to find another squad mate. Kang asks if his son is okay. Chan replies, yes, and the father asks him to greet the executives. The protagonist introduces Kang as the CEO of Kang Motors, then introduces himself as an assistant translator. Charlon compliments his pronunciation. He even thinks the way the protagonists speak sounds familiar. Chan thanks him. Charlon introduces Smithen as the office sales manager in Asia. After that, the executives go to the table. The hotel waitress prepares to take the orders. Smithen keeps an eye on her and is scolded. Again, Charlon asks curiously if the name Kang Chan is common in Korea. The protagonist does not answer. Charlon believes that the boy could not understand his French because he spoke too fast. Chan quickly responds that his name is common in Korea. Charlon says that it is a cool name. The protagonist soon says that he is also familiar with their name. Silence hangs over. The place the waitress arrives with the drinks. Charlon is ready to start negotiations. Kang's translator warns about it. The protagonist's father refers to Charlon as vice president and says that it will be difficult to accept his sudden proposal. That's why he hopes that the conditions of the contract about having a monopoly on 500 cars will be modified. Charlon says that he won't change the conditions if he wants. He can just sign the original contract for 50 cars. But if Kang does that, Kuang Motors will also be able to import the cars under the same conditions. The protagonist realizes that Charlon hasn't changed anything over time. Kang says he has already paid half the contract price for the 50 cars. According to the contract, paying the remaining amount is enough to obtain a monopoly on shift rights in South Korea. Charlon says that he is right. Just prepare facilities that match the requirements of the headquarters. Kang replies that it is great because he has signed contracts with workshops all over the country to use his facilities. Now he only needs to prepare the other requirements. Charlon says that he gave the same conditions to Suung Motors and received a positive response. Kang is shocked because he thought they were going to close the contract. The Kang Motors executive says that this is absurd and they should take legal action. The protagonist realizes that this attitude of the executive can make the captain angry. Charlon really gets angry and says that he will accept those words as if they were from Kang Motors. He adds that this is a shame, but he will make a point of declaring that it was Kang Motors that started this battle. The man says he is leaving, and Smith, and accompanies him as the executives try to close the deal. At that moment, the protagonist enters the conversation. He asks Charlon to give a little more time, but the man speaks has no more time. The protagonist says he only needs a week and a night. Charlon questions if an assistant translator can take responsibility for his words. Kang asks if Chan has a plan. The protagonist replies, "No, but it's better than abandoning the game now." The executives of Kang Motors have a different opinion. They think it would be better to apologize now and request a renegotiation. The protagonist yells that if they do this, these people will intensify their attacks. Kang holds his head thoughtfully. Charlon and smile and wait for an answer. Kang asks the executive to translate his words as of today. Chan's words and decisions are absolute. This means that he will answer for Kang Motors. The executive is shocked and yells at Kang not to do it. Chan thanks his father for his trust. Charlon questions if he will also give up the technical assistance rights if he cannot pay for the 500 cars. In 1 week, the protagonist says that he shouldn't worry about it. The man has doubts about the extra night he asked for. Chan just replies that he will see. Smithen sees no problem on the other hand. Charlon doesn't stop thinking that Chan looks like someone from his past. The protagonist asks if he agrees with the decision. The man answers yes and tells the boy to call the day before the meeting. After that, they shake hands and close the deal. The protagonist finds it strange to live with Charlon and Smith. And off the battlefield, he knows it will be difficult to convince them both after that Charlon and Smith, and leave the executives try to tell Kang that now the French company has a reason to attack them. The protagonist's father disagrees because they created a situation that the French company did not foresee. It is a significant evolution, after which Kang says that it is time to leave on the way home. Kang asks if the protagonist is really his son. Chan is surprised by the question. The father says he knows he didn't learn French on the internet. The protagonist replies that he can't tell the truth because his father wouldn't believe it. Kang changes the subject and asks him not to go after the gangsters for help. The protagonist agrees, and after that, the two are silent. Chan sends a text message to someone asking to meet him later. The scene changes to a while later. Kang parks the car and the protagonist says he has something to do, then goes home afterwards. The father again tells him not to ask the delinquents for help. The protagonist replies that he won't do that. Kang takes a deep breath and enters the building while Chan walks in the opposite direction. In the past, the French squad was attacked by an enemy group. They tried to save a village that had been invaded. Daru fought side by side with the protagonist again, with Chan taking the position of captain. He crossed the enemy territory, jumping over some rooftops. Opponents use basaws and all kinds of weapons. You can imagine. The protagonist used speed to catch enemies from behind at that moment, he shoots all the men. Several cars are hit in the sequence. The protagonist comes out of the flames saying that Zone K is safe. Deo accuses him of showing off. Chan worries about the survivors of the village. The soldier reported that at the moment only 4 people suffered minor injuries. Fortunately, no one was fatally injured. The protagonist says that this is good and asks where Smithen is. Daru says she hasn't seen him in a while. Chan had a bad feeling. Meanwhile, in one of the houses in the village, Smitten finds a survivor and thinks about putting his hands on the woman. She screams for help, and he says he is just going to have fun. The woman screams that she doesn't want to, but Smithen doesn't back down. Suddenly, the protagonist breaks into the house and gets extremely angry. When he finds Smithen in that situation, the soldier tries to pretend he was helping a survivor. Suddenly, Chance slaps Smithen in the face while yelling that he shouldn't try to deceive him. That day, Smithen was beaten so badly that he was worse than the enemies. The scene changes to the current moment. The protagonist remembered this situation from the past and had feeling that Smithen didn't change anything. Suddenly, a car parks and asks if he waited too long. Chan says no, and the man invites him in. The soldier realizes that he seems bothered and asks if anything happened. The protagonist says that he found Smithen and Charlon Dao, is surprised to know that those guys are still alive. He questions where they are. The protagonist replies that they are at the Namsen Hotel. Dai accelerates the car and says that he is going there. Chan asks him to wait a moment. The main character tells that those two have new and successful careers. Charlene is the vice president of G-Cars and Smithen is the manager. Daru bursts out laughing, thinking it's a joke but realizes it's not. The protagonist asks why the guy is thinking of going to the hotel. Dar says he doesn't accept that Smithen is the manager of something. He was the dumbest in the squad. In addition, Dar has the feeling that they were betrayed by Smithen and Charlon. After all, they were murdered while the two are still alive. Daru asks if the captain doesn't see this. The protagonist says that they need to find some evidence before they can come to a conclusion. Daru says that they can find the evidence after beating up those traitors. Chan is against the decision, but the soldier accelerates the car, saying that he will do things his way. At that moment, the protagonist yells at Du not to do anything absurd. The soldier obeys the order and apologizes for overreacting. He suggests asking for help from that bully named Guang. The protagonist thinks that Guang's organization would help a lot both in gathering information and fighting, but he does not want to go against the request that his father made. The protagonist thinks of an effective plan that does not involve the delinquents. At that moment, Michelle calls him. The girl was at work and called to find out if he solved the problem he talked about earlier. The protagonist replies that she doesn't, and she regrets saying that she was hopeful. Chan changes the subject and asks what the place of the meeting will be tomorrow. Michelle replies that she doesn't care about the place, as long as she is with him. The protagonist takes the opportunity to arrange the meeting at the hotel. Michelle is delighted with the proposal, and he soon tells her to take her friends. The girl asks what the hotel will be. The protagonist arranges the meeting at the Namsen Hotel at 7 Hori at night. Michelle replies that she will be there tomorrow. After that, the call ends. Dar asks who it is, and Chan replies that it is a beautiful French woman. The soldier thinks he is wanting to have fun, but the protagonist tells him to use his brain. His adversaries are Smithen and Charlon Diu. Finally understands that Chan will use the girls as bait. At that moment, the protagonist calls the hotel and tries to talk to Charlon. The assistant answers and says he will pass the information to the vice president. Chan sets the meeting for Tuesday at 7 p.m. The merchant on the other end of the line agrees. The protagonist begins to say that tomorrow he will have an appointment at that time with some girls, but the man should not misunderstand the situation on the other end of the line. Smithen replies that he is jealous and says goodbye. The call ends. Dar says that Smith's reaction was not what he expected and asks if his personality has changed. The protagonist assumes it's because Charlon is close, so the man restrained himself. But he's sure that tomorrow Smithen will show up to see the beautiful girls. Daru agrees that the guy should continue. The same way, the protagonist tells the soldier to go with him tomorrow. He's sure Smitten will go crazy when Michelle and the other girls arrive at the hotel. It is at this moment that Daru must act. The protagonist says that the soldier should kidnap Smitten at the first opportunity and take him to the car. Dar is excited about that idea and intends to look for a quiet place where he can take Smitten. He also says that he will destroy the man personally. The protagonist asks if he will be okay alone. Dairo is sure he can defeat Smith, and alone. Chan replies that maybe in the past he had a chance, but he will have difficulty with the current body. In addition, Smithen was good at arm wrestling with Daru. The soldier remembers the duels they created in the squad and says that everything will be fine all the times he lost. It was because he used his right arm instead of his left. The protagonist says he understands, but he no longer has the body he had when he was a soldier. Smithen still has the same body. Dairo says he was just joking. The protagonist breathes a sigh of relief and says he will help him catch Smithen, but asks the soldier to know that if everything goes wrong, Smithen will have to be eliminated. Dyer says that if they are lucky, they will be able to solve Kang's problem and destroy those who betrayed the squad. The protagonist agrees with his friend. The two seem excited to put the plan into action. The soldier confesses that he is nervous, and he says he is too. Deo goes back to driving while the protagonist focuses on how they are going to capture Smithen. He knows that the Solder's abilities are incredible, which means that Smithen is superior to any gangster the protagonist has fought so far. Later that day, night comes and Dar leaves Chan at home. He says that he knows some places to take Smith in and asks if the captain needs a list. The protagonist replies that he will let D to take care of it after that. The soldier leaves. Chin enters the house and finds his father making some porridge. The man explains that Suk has not been feeling well since he learned about the family situation. He also suggests that his son go to rest. The next day arrives. Kang takes the protagonist to school, completely discouraged. Chan warns that he has contacted some people who know Gong's executives, and they will look for a solution. Kang again asks him not to get involved in illegal things just to help the family. Chan agrees, and the car stops at the entrance of the school. Diru is there waiting for him later. The class starts. The protagonist has always tries to resist sleep. Kim laughs at the situation after classes. It's time for nerd training. Kim Miang supports their efforts and yells at them to continue. Enel watches from afar. Hours later, classes end. Kim Yong asks to go home with Chan, but he says he won't go home because he has other plans. Kim Mang asks if the protagonist will find a girl. He replies that he will meet Professor Kongo. The girl then says she will go with him after all. She is the manager of the club. The protagonist replies that she can't go and leaves Kim. Mayong is sad. Chen goes down the stairs of the school when he hears a scream. Anel asks again to join the club. He only replies that he will talk about it later. Chan enters the sports room and notices Dar dressed formally. He says he thinks it's better not to dress like that. Daru asks if it's bad. The protagonist gives up and tells the man to go as he wants. He asks if Daru brought his clothes. The soldier says it's better to get dressed in the car, but Chan is against it. Because the space there is very small, on the other hand, Dar is worried about getting the school's attention if they see them leaving in suits in the end. He tells the protagonist to turn around and do whatever he wants. Night comes. Diru stops the car at the entrance of the Namsan Hotel and says he will wait in the basement parking lot. Chan says he can wait in the hotel's coffee shop because there is no way Smithen can recognize him after all. Daeyu also reincarnated in another body. The soldier is afraid of being beaten by his wife, but he can't pass up the possibility of kidnapping Smithen. Then the man orders the protagonist to get out of the car so he can park. Chan obeys and enters the hotel. But inside he realizes that Michelle has not yet arrived and decides to wait. Suddenly, someone calls him by the name of Boss. The protagonist looks confused because he does not recognize the man, so he introduces himself as Dookie, one of Guang's minions who yelled at the protagonist. Dookie says that he works here and he can ask for help if he needs it. Chan tells him to leave. Dookie obeys. The protagonist sits on the couch while wondering why this gangster works here in a way it will be problematic if Desk knows about his plan. At that moment, someone interrupts his thoughts. Michelle arrived accompanied by her friends. They were so beautiful that they caught the attention of all the people in the place. The protagonist is ready to put his plan into action. The girls talk to each other in French, saying that the protagonist is well-dressed and is more beautiful than ever. Diary notes that he has already started the plan and makes the movement with his head confirming that he will stay there. Michelle complains that Chan is not paying attention to them. The protagonist justifies F, saying that everyone is talking at the same time, then asks them to talk one at a time. Michelle asks what the plans are for today. He says that first, they will go somewhere else. Daru carefully observes that he is following the plan. The protagonist takes the girls to a dinner table. At that moment, a hotel employee serves several dishes. Chan warns that he has not placed any orders yet, but the man replies that he was instructed to serve the dishes and is already paid. Chan thinks about who could have done it. The waiter says that those dishes are the most luxurious in the house. The protagonist gives up on prolonging the subject, and Michelle asks for the wine menu. Then she turns to Shan and says that he must be very important. The protagonist replies that he actually has some acquaintances at the hotel. Michelle is more and more in love, on the other hand. Shan mentally curses the gangsters. He believes it was their idea. The wines finally arrive and the protagonist decides to continue drinking soda. He justifies it by saying that he is just a student. Michelle insists because she thinks it is okay to break the rules from time to time. The girls also drink wine, but they complain about how much Michelle is drinking. After half an hour of conversation, the protagonist discovers a lot about the girls. They are all 26 years old and met after working together for a while. Currently, Michelle is a magazine editor, Cecil is an employee of a security company, and Cindy is a freelancer. For now, things seem calm at that moment. The protagonist's phone rings and he asks permission to answer. At first he thought it was Daru, but then he realized it was Guang and got angry. The leader of the bandit soon says that he knows he is wearing a suit at the Ensign Hotel. The protagonist replies that it is none of his business. The man tells him not to act that way because he is just wanting to be his friend. Guang adds that the protagonist can ask Dosio for help, and he will take care of most things himself. Chan hangs up the call, and Michelle says that the boy is very strange today. It's as if he had set up a date with thousands of things to solve at the same time. She says that it is a female intuition and is sure that she is not wrong. The protagonist decides to tell the truth because he no longer sees reasons to hide it, and the girl can still help him. So he explains that there is an American named Smithen staying at this hotel. Probably this man will join them soon. Michelle crosses her arms while asking if that's why he called her here. The protagonist says that in a way. Yes, but it's because he needs to check something in person. The protagonist apologizes for that. Michelle is thoughtful. The other two girls don't seem to like that information. An awkward silence settles in that place. Suddenly, Michelle says she will forgive him because he was sincere, so this time he will not receive punishment. The girls agree with her. Cecil says that it will be good if someone else joins them. The protagonist is happy because everything is going well at that moment. He received a message from the soldier warning that Smithen is already here. Chan then imagines that they can already go to the club. But Daru sends a message in French saying that not yet. Because the poisonous snake is in front of him, the protagonist quickly realizes that that is the name of a French gang. He asks if his friend is sure, and the soldier replies, yes, he was able to check a snake tattoo on 3 of the men who were in front of him. Dar is pretty sure there might be more of them in the hotel. The limbs of the venomous snake have a red snake design above the left thumb. Dayu has even fought some of them in Paris in the past. That the protagonist knows that there is no way the soldier could have confused it. He fears that these men have been hired as bodyguards for Charlin and Smith. Indaris sends a text message saying that it is better to give up the plan today because there is no way to defeat these guys. At first, the protagonist agrees, but he finds it difficult for the members of the poisonous snake gang to leave tomorrow. In addition, it will be worse to face everyone at the same time and still have to deal with Charlene. At that moment, Dar writes that the men are going to the club. The protagonist feels more and more cornered because his plan is going down the drain. The enemies walk underground and go down a ladder with bright lights. The girls notice the tense atmosphere. On the other hand, Sean tries to think of a second alternative. Without many options, he calls for Do. The gangster arrives and the protagonist goes straight to the point. He says that there are approximately 4 Westerners in the club, then asks Does to evacuate all the people. When he enters the room, the man replies that he can't do anything without taking orders from the boss. The protagonist agrees and contacts Guan. He asks the leader to close the club tonight. Guang is surprised by the request, and the protagonist says he doesn't have time. The boss replies that he can't do it because he only has a part of the shares to close the club. He will have to talk to the other shareholders. Chan promises to carry out any request of the man if he gets out alive that night. He just needs to close the club. Guang is surprised by that and asks if he will really do anything. The protagonist passes the phone to Doyo, hoping that the leader will accept his request. The bully informs his superior that Chan is asking to lock the 4 Westerners inside the club and evacuate the rest. The cell phone goes back into the protagonist's hand after a few minutes of conversation. Guang agreed to help him but demands that he take some of his men in case things get out of hand. Guang adds that in 30 minutes, some of the strongest fighters in his squad will arrive. The protagonist thinks this is a good thing because it's another chance for success. If Guang's employees manage to stop the French gangsters, he then accepts Guang's condition and asks to close the club. The protagonist hangs up the call, and Michelle asks if there is something wrong. Chan is sincere and warns that there are members of the poisonous snake here. The girls are shocked because they knew the French gang. The protagonist asks them to leave before things get worse. Michelle asks if there is anything she can do to help, to which Chan replies that by his scared expression, there is nothing the girl can do. Besides that, one day he will return to France and does not want her to have problems for having been seen with him. After saying this, the protagonist gets up and says goodbye to the girls, he warns. Due that he will leave the girls in his care, the gangster obeys. The protagonist leaves the hotel restaurant and walks toward Ward's. The club on the way, he meets several people and is thinking if everything will work out. Dar joins him and the two enter the club. Chan creates a plan as they go down the stairs. First, his goal is not to be noticed by the men of the gang of poisonous snakes. Then they will eliminate 2 of them with 1 hit each. All this will happen because the bandits will not be aware of their true intentions. Dai asks what they will do if the men are armed. The protagonist replies that this is Korea. He is sure that the men would not use weapons if they did not know what is about to happen. At that moment, some girl were walking towards the exit of the nightclub, angry at having been expelled. They complained that suddenly a guy asked them to leave the room. The protagonist thanks. Guang, mentally, he finally arrives at the hall where a party is happening. Some people are celebrating with alcoholic beverages. Fortunately, fewer customers than usual DU shows, where the members of the poisonous serpent gang are. The protagonist walks towards them until he notices a known person. Smith and greets him and asks, "Were the beautiful girls? He said he would bring our Chan Li, saying that they haven't arrived yet." Smithen says it's a shame and invites him to drink together. The two sit next to those men. Smithen asks, "Who is the man that the protagonist brought?" Chan replies that he is his friend and responsible for bringing the beautiful girls who will arrive later. He introduces Do as Sikh. Smith and offers a drink to the soldier while saying that it is a pleasure to meet him. Dyer accepts the drink even though he hates Smithen. The protagonist notices that customers are starting to leave the club, and Smithen complains about this. He says that he is disappointed because he heard the Koreans like to drink and party, but suddenly the place became completely silent after the few people who were here left. The protagonist says that he doesn't have to worry because the show is already going to start. At that moment, the doors of the club lock, and the guard warns that something is wrong. Chan yells that it's time. Diru knocks down the first member of the Poison Snake Gang with a punch. Smithen tries to flee as the men are knocked down. Chan and Dare use a broken drink bottle to eliminate the guard's SMI and notices the protagonist's murderous look and despairs. In addition, the whole place has been stained red. The protagonist has no time to chase Smithen because one of the men tries to hit Deu from behind. He is stopped by Chan Diru. Takes the opportunity to catch Smithen with his bare hands. He manages to jump and knock the man to the ground. Diru is so angry that he strikes the enemy several times in the face. The confrontation is very intense. The protagonist keeps eliminating the gang members. The last guard standing realizes that he will not be able to defeat Chan with his hands, so he takes something out of his suit. The protagonist looks scared, imagining that it is a dagger,